Hello, folks, and welcome to the Two Stewards Show. My name's Mark. I'm here with Brent.
Hello, everybody.
And today we've got a guest. We've got Tony Miller. No, I anglicized your name. Anthony Molinaro.
Yeah.
Welcome.
How did you know that Miller was the English pronunciation?
Is it?
I don't know. Molinaro. It's a Miller, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Wow. That's impressive.
We talk about pasta a lot on the show, and Mark's big into
It's true. Actually, I think one of the pastas that I use, or one of the flours I use to make pasta, is a Molinaro, I think.
Really?
It's on the package somewhere anyways, milled in Italy.
Yeah,
so
it might be Molino or something.
Oh, okay,
I think
or
I've
maybe
seen
it was just on the, where it was milled.
Yeah.
But I only get Italian flour, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah,
and you make your own pasta?
Yeah, of course.
From scratch?
No, from flour and eggs.
Yeah, from the flour, yeah.
I didn't use scratch. Yeah, man. I mean, why buy fiat food, right? Make your own.
Huh. Interesting, yeah. It's a big process.
It's not too bad. I got it down to an art now, so
wow.
It goes
That's the best
pretty quick.
welcome to the show we've ever had.
And do you use the spinner to
I
do
I have a electric one.
Okay.
Like an attachment on my KitchenAid thing. I know the other was because I'm cooking for like 6, right?
Yeah.
The kids and the wife, so it's a lot of pasta.
Yeah. My Nono would say never do what the machine can do for you. So there you go, man. There you go.
Yeah, no, I know.
That was his wise old Italian
Was
wisdom.
it around when the internet was invented? Or?
Yeah.
She would have been big into ChatGPT or AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, so I'm not a purist. There has to be some allowance for
No,
technology.
it's impressive. Yeah,
but,
it's impressive.
Yeah, no, come over sometime. Tell me what you think.
I'm sure it's good.
Okay, but we didn't come on here to talk about my pasta making skills.
I did.
Wonderful as they may be. But so Anthony, you work for Rockstar Real Estate. Mm-hmm. That's how we know you, because we're both members of the Rockstar community. And I see you got your Life Your Term shirt on. Yeah, represent. So that's cool. And you are, you're not membership coordinator, are you? What do you do?
I still am. I'd say my official title would be like content producer and membership coordinator. So
okay.
I started in the membership coordinator role, kind of helping with administration of the membership, coordinating things. And as I've grown as an investor, I've been able to now produce content. So whether it's hosting the podcast, filming YouTube videos, writing articles for the newsletter, writing some emails, I've been able to kind of contribute that way. So that's how my roles kind of shifted.
Yeah, I remember when you were just in short pants.
That's it. That's it.
And that's been cool to see your growth and your your growth, I guess is a good way to put it. And you're just learning tons. Did you know anything about real estate before you joined Rockstar?
So I had met one real estate investor. She was living full-time off her properties, off the cash flow. She owned about 8 properties in Hamilton.
Yeah.
The way I met her is the more interesting thing. Because when I was 20, I was working full-time at a Pepsi warehouse to pay my way through university.
Right.
So I was working 4 p.m. to midnight, Monday to Friday at the Pepsi warehouse. And I'd go to university in the morning.
Taking what?
Business.
Okay.
Business administration. And so that's how I was paying my way. And then my parents used to get the Toronto Star, and they had a personal finance section, and there was kind of a blurb or editorial where you could email a personal finance guy at the Toronto Star to basically ask a personal finance question. So I was like, I want to get some, financial advice for free. I don't want to have to pay anyone for it.
Of course.
So I'm going to email this guy. So I said, hey, I'm making like 55 grand a year working at this Pepsi warehouse. I'm paying my way through school. I want to buy a condo for myself to live in after I graduate. What do you recommend I do with the money? Should I invest it? Should I save it? Let me just get some free financial advice. Yeah. They ended up liking the story so much, the fact that I was working full-time and also in university full-time. They asked if they could write a story on me and send a photographer over to the house to take a picture and stuff.
Wow.
So I was on my front lawn. They had a photographer with the whole setup. It was super embarrassing. I was hoping my friend across the street wouldn't drive by and see me getting photographed on my front lawn.
And throw cannoli at you or something.
I was just praying that Dana wasn't going to come by. And so they ended up putting that story on the front page of the Toronto Star.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not the main story, but it was at the bottom of the front page.
Yeah.
Like, this man has money problems, the good kind.
Okay.
Was the thing. And you can Google it and find it if you search Toronto
We got a
Star.
celebrity, Brent.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to have a celebrity on.
You
So-
revealed that you're not from Italy then. You're from Toronto.
Yeah, born
It's
here.
pretty well the same thing.
Okay.
I mean,
Woodbridge, maybe. But yeah, so it was on the front page. Their advice was basically invest in index fund. That was the advice I got.
great.
Typical financial advice.
Yep.
Not bad, but not great either. So a woman read the article, this real estate investing woman. She sent me Rich Dad Poor Dad in the mail. Still don't
No
know
way.
how she got my address. And she said, I didn't like the advice the Toronto Star gave you. Give this book a read, and if you're interested in learning more, give me a call. And she had her business card, and it said Tucker Finn, singer-songwriter. And I was like, all right. So I read the book. Was an amazing book, had a big impact on me. Called her, ended up taking her out for coffee. She printed out her whole real estate portfolio, walked me through how she got the first property, the second, the third, fourth, fifth, how refinancing worked, everything, just in this like 2-hour coffee session.
Yeah.
Just like so upfront, so giving, literally just trying to help me out. No financial incentive for doing so.
She wasn't trying to sell you a course.
Nothing to sell me, no course, no nothing. She's like, I wish I knew this stuff when I was your age. And I
Yeah.
guess she liked the fact I was hardworking, and she identified with that. And
Yeah.
she's like, I want to help mentor this kid.
And you
Wow.
were
It was
20?
amazing. I was 20.
20, okay.
20 years old when I met her. So I ended up building a relationship with this woman and basically, taking her out for coffee, taking her out for lunch. I started a real estate investing club at my school because I wanted a good excuse to meet other investors, to like bring them in to speak.
Yeah.
So I'd have her come in and speak to some friends that were there just trying to support me. They
What
probably
school
didn't.
was it?
This is Guelph Humber, University
Okay.
of Guelph Humber. So I graduated university, was still working at Pepsi. Was absolutely miserable there. I was working in a warehouse doing just manual labor, right? Was ready for a change. Hurt my shoulder, so I had some time off from Pepsi, which gave me the free time to start searching up more real estate investing stuff, looking up clubs, and I found Rockstar. They were based in Oakville. I was in Brampton, so I said, that's not too bad. They had a free training class. I was like, all right, I might as well go. Registered for the class. 1 week before that class happened, Tucker suddenly passed away.
Oh, no.
I still don't know how. It's been super secretive of how she actually passed. I've spoke to her partner, but didn't get many details. So don't really know what happened. It's really unfortunate and sad. If I had to guess, it's probably a heart attack.
Yeah.
But she always told me, she was a member of Rain.
Yeah.
And she was like, it was good at the beginning, but then Don Campbell left and it went downhill, and, just not a fan. I don't recommend you actually sign up for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for people who don't know, that's Real Estate Investment Network. That's like a Canada-wide.
Yeah, and
Real
it
estate
was
network.
the club,
Yeah.
for people to learn about real estate investing through, the 90s, 2000s, something
Yeah.
like that, right? So she said you just need a mentor, like a coach, someone to hold your hand through this stuff. So then Rockstar at that free training class talked about their program and the fact that they had coaching. And with Tucker, now unfortunately and really tragically out of the picture, I was like, I need that mentorship. So I signed up for Rockstar, and 3 months later, a job posting came up, and I introduced myself to Tom and Nick and got my resume at the top of the pile by going in and shaking their hands.
I work for Pepsi.
I work for Pepsi. I have no skills. I'm not qualified, but I want to learn.
I work for a large multinational Fortune 500 company.
Logistics supervisor.
Producing Fiat food right there. Okay.
That was one of the things I hated about Pepsi is we were producing poison to sell
Right.
to the world, and I was just packaging up that poison and shipping it out. But there's something that corrupts your soul when you're selling something that's terrible
Constantly.
for the world.
Yeah.
And it is terrible. We had a recycling section in the warehouse where the citric acid from the Pepsi would leak out because we crush all the cans, old cans, damaged cans, whatever. It would leak out, and there was rivets and cracks and holes in the concrete burned through from the citric acid. And I just remember thinking, man, people are drinking this poison. I'm like,
Wow.
I
Yeah,
still
but
have
you're-
the occasional soda, but I'm not a daily soda drinker. Like, it's not good
Not
for
like
you.
Mark.
Too bad I didn't have my Coke Zero today.
Any
Wow.
cracks in the belly?
Well, my concrete's not made of. My stomach's not made of concrete, so
Okay.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's much stronger material. Yeah. So Anyways, yes. So long story short, I've been with Rockstar for the past 5 years and learned a ton about real estate investing and building a business and Bitcoin and all sorts of wild and wonderful things. And that's and I started investing in real estate. So I've partnered up with friends to buy every single property. We've purchased 4 properties to date.
When did you start? Like, how old were you when you were at your first place?
20. I had just turned 24.
Okay. Because I think a lot of younger people, probably, how many years ago was that? Like,
it was 2019.
Yeah. Okay. So you probably were able to get in. Like, a lot of people listening to this who don't have a property yet are kind of like, how did he do it? Like,
yeah, partnering up with a friend. Yeah. And that's the only way I've been able to purchase every single property.
So you used both your incomes.
Both the incomes. The biggest thing was qualifying, but also savings. You know, at pretty much every property we've purchased, haven't had the savings for it.
Yeah.
We've had to kind of do what we had to do.
Yeah.
But it's partnering up 50-50 on profit, 50-50 on if there's a loss. Yeah. Right? We're in it together as 50-50 partners, 50-50 on the money.
50-50 losses are tricky, eh? Try and put it in the agreement.
You don't hope for those, but they can happen. Yeah. Luckily, there hasn't been that loss, but 50-50 on everything. So savings. But really, the biggest thing was qualifying. You know, it's just we were both entry-level salaries. My buddy was actually working at Pepsi, still making like 55, 60K. I actually took a bit of a pay cut. I was making like 45K when I very first started at Rockstar, and that's been bumped up, but it was still like, maybe I was at 50K when I bought that first one.
Yeah. So to qualify.
So I only qualified for like 230, 240, 250, and that couldn't get you anything. Yeah. And so with my buddy who qualified for about the same, we could qualify for up to 450.
Purchase price.
Yeah. And so we scraped together some money and we bought that first one.
Yeah. And then where is that?
That's St. Catharines.
St. Catharines. Okay. Yeah. So 2019 St. Catharines 450 goes a lot further than it does now. It
did, but I remember the very first property that the realtor at Rockstar we were working with showed us. I just remember saying to him, and it was a duplex. It was $450. I remember being like, "This is what $450,000 buys you, like this tiny little duplex." And I was so naive. I'd lived at my parents' my whole life, knew nothing about real estate or rents or St. Catharines or, you know, prices. And I was just like, even back then I was like, you know, not realizing it was because the money's becoming worthless, but just like, holy smokes, this is all we can buy. So it was a sad moment, and now it buys you even less. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we should get into that. So are you a big reader then? Like, because where did you go from 2019 to now? Like, your understanding seems to have changed quite a bit on real estate, on money,
reading,
economics.
Podcasts, YouTube videos. I don't listen to music very often.
Okay.
Like, I'm always just crushing podcasts.
Yeah.
Educating myself. I'm just like intellectually obsessed right now with learning more.
Okay.
Not that I don't like music, but I just don't.
Well, sorry to bring you on our show because
we're bringing it down a few notches. Okay. So, okay, what has been more valuable to you? I don't know if this is a fair question, but I'll ask it anyways. Your business degree or all the stuff you've learned kind of since then on your own?
Yeah, everything on my own and not even close. And the business degree, I would never do it again if I had to go back. I would never, ever.
See?
I would never, ever do it again. And unless you're doing a STEM field or a college program that's very specific to get into a trade, you know, whether it's dental hygiene or becoming a barber or whatever college program to get some sort of specific trade or job or apprenticeship or whatever, I would never recommend you go to university, ever. It's a complete waste of time.
There you go. From the horse's mouth, folks.
Complete waste of money. The world's changing. University can't keep up. The degrees are becoming worthless. They're double inflating. They're inflating in price.
Yeah.
Way faster than the income are inflating that you're going to earn after you graduate. And they're inflating in they're basically, the value of it is inflating away because everybody's getting one now. So when university degrees really meant something, it was because a very small class of people could afford or qualify to get into those schools, to get those degrees, to get those high paying jobs after. And now everyone's just pushed into it like cattle from high school. and you take on a bunch of debt to get this thing that's becoming less and less valuable. Most people don't even get jobs in the fields that they went to school for because you graduate, you hit the real world and you realize, oh, like I actually need real world skills. I need real world, I need to make money in this world, and my degree might've been useless. And, I just think, why take on a bunch of debt to get this thing that's not actually getting you ahead in today's day and age?
There you go.
So he's not going for his master's.
No. I'm working on my real estate license right now, and that's painful.
Okay.
But at least it's more like applicable in the real world.
Yeah, you chose to do that. It's like a specific course for a specific career path. Right?
Yeah, and it's not $40,000 to get like my university degree was. It's $4,000, and it's learning like a real world skill that I can
what about
actually...
the value of, because people talk about university, you can do like, YouTube education or whatever online, try and find stuff out for yourself like you've done since university. But what about the value of like going to a place with people being connected? Like, did you see any value to that side of it, or is there like...
For me, no, because I was working at Pepsi.
Right.
So I didn't have the typical university experience.
So you're not going there.
I lived at home. I went to school in the morning.
Yeah.
I was there to get my degree,
That's
to
how
learn,
you can pay.
to get out.
Yeah.
And to graduate debt free. And so I chose to kind of sacrifice that university experience to have money, basically.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that university experience, but from what I saw of my friends who did go away to school, the best thing that they got, I think, was probably some lifelong friendships from those people they went to school with. And so I kind of missed out on those deeper connections of like living with a group of guys.
Right.
That's something that, I can really see the value of.
But not for 40 grand
Well,
or whatever it is now.
yeah, I mean, if I could go back, I wouldn't have done it anyways. So like, maybe I would have lived with some of them, but honestly, like they just partied a lot. And not like I didn't party a lot in my early 20s. I did. But not to the same degree that they did. And I was like ready to get serious about my life when I was probably about 20. I started getting serious about my life.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
So that's not common either, I would say.
To a degree. I still had a lot of fun. I still did a lot of dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But like I wanted to make money. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to...
Yeah. I think you're unique enough that the Toronto Star identified you as 20-year-old. They want to write an article about it on the front page.
Yeah, it's like, who is this guy?
And now he's like, burn the system down.
Including the Toronto Star. Like,
no kidding, right? Index funds. No, this is something we've been talking about and kind of struggling with as well. Like, is there a point to university anymore? And I think I've reached kind of the same conclusion as you. Like for STEM stuff, sure. But the camera just went off. Don't worry, we'll be back, folks, if you're watching. But just the corruption that has crept into academia, and it started in universities and worked its way right down at primary school now. But like, there's no focus on like what. So back when I went, okay.
His beard's longer than yours.
I got to study right with with Aristotle and these guys, so that was pretty cool. But there was still an emphasis on like critical thinking and learning stuff, and not there weren't safe spaces and and all the other what I would call woke nonsense that kind of is through every curriculum now. And to the point where it's like, what are these kids actually learning? And are they actually, basically if when I went, you had to go to class and do stuff. And if you didn't, like, you wouldn't pass. And now I think there's a real emphasis on making sure students pass and that everything is happy and safe and wonderful. And it's like, no, it was part of life, right? You could go party if you wanted. Yeah. But chances are that meant, unless you're really smart. And I found out I wasn't that smart. Well, because it's tough when you're kind of smarter in, high school or middle school, whatever, right? You can kind of coast by just on being smart and not having to do the work. And you get to university, it's like, you got to do the work now. Now, if it's still like that, but it was at that point. But in any case, I've been kind of plugging trades for kids for a long time as well. Yeah. It's maybe not everybody's dream, but once you get into the real world and you're like, okay, my basket weaving degree, like nobody's hiring for that. Like did they lie to me?
Yeah.
Right. And your buddy who's a plumber is like, yeah, I'm making $100K a year because I did my apprenticeship and stuff. And now I'm like, master plumber. And just gives you a different perspective. And I think, if you want to advance your education, there's professional designations you can get in whatever field that you're in. and you can work, like your real estate license, for example, and there's other things you can do, right? If you want to be in that field, there's lots of other stuff you can do if you want to have those letters, and if you want to actually have some like real post-secondary education, I think. So it's, anyways, it's kind of nice to hear it from someone who's sort of been through it and recently.
My friends that are doing the best financially right now, overall speaking, are the ones that are electricians.
Yep.
And a firefighter.
Yeah.
Those are my friends that are doing the best, I'd say, from an income standpoint, from an asset standpoint, aside from maybe myself. They were electricians. They started working at 18 years old. They were making money the minute they got out of high school, and they've only made more money ever since. And firefighter, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think it's worth it. And we didn't even talk about, the woke stuff. You're going into all this debt to graduate school dumber than when you came in. You go to university now to get uneducated.
Yeah.
Like, you're better off using your common sense, finding a business owner or finding a field of practice that you can work in apprenticeship style. Like, I wish I had known about Rockstar Real Estate instead of university, because I would have tried to work my way in the front door back then. And because that's been a far better education, working inside a successful small business in the field that I want to be in, right? That's been 10 times better.
In a sense, you have like real consequences. You do something in a business and it doesn't work out. Well, you learn pretty quick, right? You don't get customers, or your customers go away.
Exactly. You're not making money.
It's like theory. It's hypothetical. Like, well,
it's putting it into practice. And when you have a trade or an apprenticeship, it's like, if you give a bad haircut, you're not going to get barber clients. So you better learn how to give a good haircut. And if you do a bad marketing campaign in business, you're not going to get clients. So you better learn how to market better.
Unless you have kids, you can give them a bad haircut all you want. They still get.
I cut my kids' hair, and it's not always.
Well, they don't have a choice,
great.
right? I mean,
you get out the bowl and away you go.
So I'm interested.
Wait till high school; those clients are gone, man.
I'm interested in your peer group, because we were chatting before you came on, like, by email, going back and forth about how people are like, more and more people, we both kind of see this, are disenchanted with the system, right? Like, whether it's like, it's everything. It's political, it's the universities, but it's also like the money system, like our education system, healthcare, whatever, right? And people are just kind of jaded. I'm wondering if you're seeing that amongst your peers, colleagues, or whatever, or if it's just Mark and I in our little silos.
No, I mean, is anybody happy with the state of the world right now?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Kamala?
Can anybody say they're truly happy with the state of the world? Regardless of what your opinion is on it or why it is the way it is. I mean, everybody feels it.
Yeah.
No, nobody's enchanted with it. Everybody's disenchanted. But the thing with my friends is a lot of them just discuss the symptoms.
Right.
Everything's expensive.
Like, no one can get ahead. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know if they're using that language, but they're just complaining about the cost of living. They're complaining about the wokeness. They're complaining about politicians. They're complaining about, the education system. I think they're complaining about that stuff. Those are all the symptoms of fiat in my mind, and like Marxist ideology. But
okay, what do you mean by that? Because I think maybe some listeners know what fiat is, but I ran into a few people lately who don't know what fiat is.
What?
And yeah.
Wow. I use it all the time. But yeah, that's true. I think.
But like, we don't always define the terms, but that seems like a pretty key one.
So fiat is currency by decree. So I think the meaning of fiat is Latin. I think it means to be decreed, something like that. I'm butchering that a little bit, but it basically means it's placed upon you. So it's fiat money is placed upon us by the state. So the Canadian government says you must use Canadian dollars. It is the only legal tender. Your income will be paid in Canadian dollars. Goods will be priced in Canadian dollars. Taxes will be collected in Canadian dollars. You must use these dollars.
Yeah.
So it's a centrally planned, centrally governed money that we are forced upon us. And if you don't use Canadian dollars, if you try using your own legal tender, you quickly find out the consequences, which at the root of that all is jail.
Right. Jail.
It's what?
Jail.
Jail.
Right to jail. Right away.
You got to you can't, I'm going to pay my taxes in seashells or Bitcoin. They're not going to accept it.
No.
Right?
Okay. I get you.
So
yeah.
I mean, that's the root of it all. Like, if you tried straying away from their fiat currency, like,
Could be death, I guess, would be the other consequence. Jail or death.
Jail or death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that the money system is the root of the issues that we have in society?
That's something I'm not entirely confident to like say it's 100% the money, because I mean, it's a big wide world and I don't know way more than I do know. But it does seem like a lot of things are definitely linked to it. I don't know if it's other ideologies at play that also impact that. I mean, we have fiat money, which is like centrally controlled money, which is like centrally planned, which is like a Marxist thing, like central control. So is it like a Marxist ideology that's at the root of it all? Maybe that's more accurate than saying it's the money, because the money's like a result or a product of that Marxist ideology. But I do think, yeah, money's at the base root of a lot of problems in society. Like, and we can talk about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin fixes a lot of things, but I like what Michael Saylor says. He's like, Bitcoin doesn't fix everything. It just fixes half of everything. And I do feel that way. I do feel like, well, we can get into it. So the money is corrupted. So it corrupts everything that's on top of the money. And money is half of every transaction. So half of every transaction is corrupted. If money is the ledger of value that we use in our society, and that ledger is corrupted, it's not rooted in truth, it's rooted in theft, really, at the base root of it all, then, you know, if that's the foundation of our society, what happens to our society if the base of it is theft, if the base of it is dishonesty? You get a lot of dishonest behavior, incentives, and a lot of theft from the state.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, state-sanctioned theft, right? Inflation. So, okay, let me throw a little curveball at you. As you're talking about Marxism, the central bank in the United States was founded in 1913, and they were trying for a long while before that as well. It never passed, but 1913, the Fed was introduced, and that was the centralization of money and power. Now, Marxism really didn't get, it's wasn't really. I mean, I guess it was around then, but that was not the. That was like 1848, but that was not the point of the central bank. So. I often point, because people will go back to like 1971 when we went off the gold standard. I'm like, you got to go back further to 1913 in our modern context, anyways, to look at like when did some of this centralization of power go with that. And I think when what do they say? Power corrupts, right? And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the more we centralize things, I think we're just asking for that corruption. But then you get into the notion of, like, what is the nature of corruption? What is the nature of truth? Is there absolute truth, right? We talk about fiat money, but then we'll also talk about fiat food and stuff like that as well, right? And the idea, you're talking about working at Pepsi where, like, you're just poisoning people, right? Mm-hmm. Is there truth in food? Right. And we talked a little bit jokingly about like, making food from scratch, but like there's a reason to do that is, I want to have most of my food. I think Brent does a better job at this, but most of my food come from like actual whole foods, natural things, as opposed to what we call fiat food, which is basically the corruption of food, right? Mm-hmm. Where food by decree, where we just create this food and we tell people that it's good. Like the food pyramid, right? I don't know if you ever looked at that, but how the food pyramid is just like
a lie,
and it was made by food producers in the States,
who incentivize from having whole grains, or grains as the base of that pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then and not just that, but then making those grains into like sugary treats and stuff and calling that food, right? Like, yeah, you got to have your bowl of whatever sugary grains in the morning. So it's the whole corruption of everything. And then you get like, okay, where does the corruption come from, right? And that's why we, with our faith background, we have a different look at this. And because you're saying like nobody's really happy with the state of the world, and I can agree with that, right? But then it's like, where does your happiness come from? Where does your meaning come from? Does it come from the things of this world or the state of this world, because like logically, if nobody's happy with the state of the world and the state of the world determines your happiness, you will never be happy. And that's a pretty it's a pretty depressing thought, right? And that's so anyways, that's, you know, there's some depressing stuff for you to chew on.
Well, yeah. Where does happiness come from? I think we've all been sold a lie that like happiness is also like the thing we should all be striving for. Like to live a good life means you're happy. You're happy all the time. Like happiness is one emotion of many.
Yeah.
And I just don't necessarily think it's wise to put that at the top of your pyramid, because you will just never be happy all the time. Right? It's more important to have a meaningful life. And to have a meaningful life, I think you have to do meaningful things. And that means different things to different people. Some people really want to help animals out and volunteer at an animal shelter. Some people want to spread the word of God because God has helped them in their lives and they want to help more people, and because that's their belief system. So I think what's more important is to live a meaningful life, and in order to do that, you have to do meaningful things, and that's different for everyone. For me, I liked how Jordan Peterson frames how to have
Jordan
meaning.
Peterson was going to come into it.
Yeah, of course, right? Where he's like, to have a meaningful life. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, where does meaning come from? So I think one of the things. Oh, sorry, I should talk into the mic.
Oh, sorry, I got it. It was
Okay.
is to basically reduce unnecessary suffering, and like that gives me a lot of meaning. Like, yeah, he really articulated that well. It's like to reduce suffering
In your life or in the world?
in my life and in the world. But ultimately,
Okay.
I think you have to do it in your life first, and then you have the power and capacity to do it to other people in the world, right? Change yourself, change the world, that type of thing. Like, now that my cup is full, I can now pour some from my cup into other people's cups, right? So for me, that's kind of maybe a belief system I have. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think, I don't know if it's Jordan Peterson or not, but talking about sacrifice as well. Because I think you're, like, I would agree with you that we've been sold a lie that you have to strive for happiness, right? Like, I don't know, where did we get that from? And I mean, we can go into where we got that from, but we don't have all day. But the idea that, you said happiness is one of many emotions, and like, why should we focus on that one? But we have this self-indulgent sort of narcissistic idea, because happiness, when you talk about happiness, you're talking about your own happiness. We're not talking about Brent's happiness. Like, I want to, if I was focused on his happiness, that would be something else. But that's where sacrifice comes from, I think. And I've been kind of ruminating on, like, I don't know, I'm a man. So, what is the role of a man in his relationships in society and a marriage and all this stuff? And I know not everybody agrees with this, but one of the things I've kind of come up with, or just from listening to other people, is the idea of sacrifice. That's part of being a man, is sacrificing yourself for others. And in my family, that means for my wife, for my children. And that's sort of a, I don't know, antiquated notion maybe. Or people are like, oh, that's nonsense. But like, when you boil it all down, like, what else is there? What defines what? And that's a big question in society, right? What is a man? What is a woman? And then that gets back to truth, right? So we have to figure, because Bitcoiners often, like, this is a thing for Bitcoiners, right? You find truth in money. Right? Because we realize that fiat is nothing but a lie. It's just made up. And like, can there be objective truth? Which in our society, we're sort of, a post-truth society, right? Where the only thing that really has any meaning is your feelings. And that could be different from my feelings. But it used to be like there was an absolute standard of truth, and that's what we measured everything by. And that's gone by the wayside, because that's, old and patriarchal. But I think a lot of Bitcoiners are getting back to the idea of, no, there is an absolute truth. So if there's truth in money, can there be a standard for truth in life in general? And like, what is that? And that's where, you realize, like, happiness is not the truth, is not the standard that I should be looking for. Mm-hmm. So then what is it? And that's a big question, which we're not going to, I think, get the answer to. But
Unless Anthony has the answer.
oh, maybe. No, but it's interesting to get like your perspective, and I don't know, you're younger, I'll say, right? So younger people, like, are young people serious anymore? I don't know. I often rag on, the purple-haired kids having their avocado toast and stuff like that. But the more I talk to young people, the more I realize like there are actually serious young people who are looking for meaning in life and who are not completely self-obsessed. So that's good to see.
Yeah, I think people are just fed up with the post-truth world that you're talking about. I know I am, and so I'm like pushing back.
Yeah,
I've had it. I'm just. Yeah, I think I'm serious. I can't speak for other people, but I'm serious about all this stuff.
So, okay, here's a question. Do you think that if things were not so hard financially, that you would be thinking about a lot of these things?
100%, yeah.
Yeah? Well, this is another theory I have, because people are upset with current government, with the state of the world, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like if things were easier financially, that people maybe wouldn't think about it, wouldn't worry about it, right? If it wasn't impossible for young people to buy their, get a job, buy their first home, would they really be concerned about everything else, right? Would we have a change in government, which we most likely are, if the economy wasn't so bad? And I'm thinking, because I think, complacency is a thing. And it's hard to kind of put yourself outside of there. But if financially everything's going well in your life, right, and there's no pressure there, that's a ton of pressure, right, in the lives of, I don't know, everybody, whether you're young or old. So I'm still kind of working through that. But I think unfortunately that's the thing that eventually is the pain point for people to take action, is when, not for everybody, right? There are people who think, maybe a little more deeply about these things, but I think eventually, even talking to your friends, right, when why they're dissatisfied, probably if things were easier, or if they were able to just get a job, make decent money, buy a house, and would they be so worried about other stuff? So
yeah, I think if you're not worried about putting food on the table, then I think that frees you up mentally and emotionally and spiritually to think about some other things in life, right? But I think it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have your basic needs at the bottom: food, shelter.
He was the guy with the dogs, right? He rang a bell and
he was
the dogs
the guy
would
with
salivate?
The dogs, yes. He also made this pyramid.
Oh, wait, that was Pavlov.
That's Pavlov, yeah. What are you talking about here?
Sorry, carry on.
You even went to university.
Hey, okay, did you learn
clearly I didn't learn anything.
Did you learn about Maslow in university or outside?
No, it was a business program. It was outside.
Yeah.
It was outside, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's very little that I learned in university.
Okay,
Mark.
just proving the point. Carry on.
Yeah. So at the base of that pyramid is like food and shelter and your physiological needs. And then as you move up the pyramid, it's quick beard check. As you move up the pyramid, you can focus on love and friendship and relationships, and ultimately the top of the pyramid is what he calls self-actualization, but that would just be, in my eyes, like enlightenment, or like the highest spiritual being you could become on earth, right? But you kind of have to figure out the base of the pyramid first, and fiat money makes it almost impossible to get up that pyramid. It makes it at least very, very difficult, or way more difficult than it should be, because your legs are being swept out from under you every time you try to ascend. So if things were easier,
walking up an escalator, coming down, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's running on a treadmill,
Yeah.
and the treadmill speed just keeps getting cranked,
And you're not in charge of that speed.
And you can't get off that treadmill. You're constantly on that treadmill. And so if you can get off the treadmill, your body can rest, your nervous system can relax, like you can focus, you can think. You don't have 20 tabs open in the browser of your mind trying to figure out how the hell to get off the treadmill, or run faster, or slow this thing down. And now you can actually think. You can think, what do I want from my life? What do I want from my relationships? What's truth? What's God? You can think about the bigger questions, right? But it's very tough if you're working 3 jobs if you've got all this financial stress, if you want to just like take care of the basic physiological needs and you're finding it harder and harder to do so, you don't have that room in your life for these other things. So it's 100%. If your money wasn't being stolen from you, it would be easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting, because pain is information, right? And, so is this a necessary thing that we're going through for society, even though it sucks? Because I don't know, have you read the fourth
So
turning?
you're saying like it might be, is this a good thing because this pain is like,
Yeah. Forcing people to take action and forcing change in society. So have you read the fourth turning? We just did an episode on
I haven't read it, but I'm familiar.
on that. Okay. Yeah. So, the ages and the changes in society.
Yeah.
And so, is it necessary? I don't know, but I think it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. I don't know that it's a good thing. I would
Yeah.
never say pain is a good thing, especially pain that is unnecessary.
Okay, I don't know. Do you work out?
Yeah.
Okay, are you sore after you work out?
Yeah.
Is that pain unnecessary or necessary?
It's necessary.
Yeah. So
But
a little bit of pain.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
But does fiat money have to be necessary?
No, I don't think so.
Like it goes back to my belief, like reduce the suffering in your life, the unnecessary suffering. There's necessary suffering,
Yeah.
and there's way more, like there's plenty of necessary suffering to go around. Do we need to make it harder on ourselves? No. It's like you use an electronic thing to make your pasta.
No, you got
Do
me.
you do it by hand? No, because you'd be suffering way more. It would
Yeah.
take time away from other areas of your life, and you would inevitably overall suffer.
Yeah.
So you have an electronic one to make it easier. Did you take your horse here? Did you walk here? You probably drove here
If I had a horse.
because you reduced the suffering, because it was unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to get in shape if you don't work out? No. So that's necessary suffering. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Is everyone you love going to eventually die? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's inevitable suffering. But can we get rid of all the other unnecessary suffering in the meantime and live more fulfilled lives or focus on more important things? 100%. 100%.
So where's the government's role, do you think, in this?
What should be their role, or what is their role
what
right
should
now?
be their role? No, we know their role is to introduce unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
Like that's what they do now. But
Exactly, yeah.
what should it be?
It should be to get out of the way. It should be to let the natural order of things take place. It should be to protect life, liberty, and property. And maybe that's just my libertarian philosophy, but I think it's the smallest amount necessary to keep this country going. Protect life, liberty, and property. A police force, a military, first responders, roads. Just the basic plumbing of our society that kind of keeps it glued together.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is it.
Okay.
But that's an opinion. That's a political opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. Well, because people will look at society and be like, oh, look at all this unnecessary suffering. The government should do something.
Yeah.
But
You get into politics when it's like, well, should I be in control of my kids or should the state be? Should I be in control of my kids' education or should the state be? It's now it's a political question. So it's a different realm, I guess. But yeah, I think the state causes this unnecessary suffering, and that's quite obvious. But we still have a need for a state, so it's just how much of a role, and I guess that's a discussion.
yeah, it is, and maybe that's something that'll come out as we come through the fourth turning. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a discussion we'll have.
Did you
'cause-
always have that perspective on government? I guess all these things, but like, how is this kind of
No, I just think like when I was younger, you don't know
like
anything.
what was the realization that like the system is broken or certain aspects of the system are broken?
Just because every place you look is corruption.
Yeah.
Everything you look at is corruption. Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. The food's a scam.
Yeah.
The education's a scam. The money's a scam.
When you
The
say
policies are a
scam, like when I hear the word scam, I'm like, okay, somebody is behind this trying to rip me off.
Because it's
Is that
not,
what
because
see,
you
or
look
is
at it
like-
and it doesn't make sense. Like
Right.
it's not actually for the betterment of people.
Okay.
It's corrupt. Like everything's rotten to the core. And so it's just looking in enough places and just seeing that everything's rotten to the core that eventually
Yeah.
you're like, everything's rotten to the core. Why is that?
So, but who makes it rotten to the core? Like, is it the people? Like, I'm just thinking, okay, maybe let's take the education system or whatever. Like, are the teachers the ones who are rotten? Like, is it the guy who controls it, or is his heart in a good place, but he's just inside of us? Like, where does it stem from, you think?
I think most people have good intentions and they think that they're fighting for the right thing. So it's a tough question, because you could have a suicide bomber who thinks he's fighting for the right thing, and he's a freedom fighter for his people, his tribe, and he's blowing up a bunch of innocent lives. And on our side of things, we're looking at that and being like, well, that seems like pure evil. Yeah. But then he's looking at us and saying, well, that looks like pure evil.
So it's like,
it's a subjective question.
Whose metric do you use for judging what is good and evil?
But that's why Bitcoin fixes half the world's problems, but it doesn't fix all of them, right? But there's certainly things linked to the corruption of money. Certainly.
Yeah.
And that's the financial problems. But that's the base pyramid of that hierarchy of needs that can get solved. So if we can solve that, now we can focus on maybe some of the bigger questions.
Do you think that Bitcoin actually solves that? Or is there still some elements of corruption in Bitcoin? Or like, have you delved into that?
I think people are corrupt and Bitcoiners can be corrupt.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is not corrupt. Bitcoin is just an objective technology software program, and it's immutable truth. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, and why people hold it up on a pedestal, is because it's not corrupt. And we as humans, all of us, are corrupt.
Yeah.
So it imposes that discipline on us corrupt human beings.
Yeah.
But the software itself is not corrupt. And that's why people get religious about Bitcoin. And that could be a mistake in your guys' eyes, I'm sure, like holding Bitcoin up to that highest thing, because you have a higher belief in
that. Is
that.
Bitcoin our savior?
So that can be sacrilegious, but it's easy to like justify Bitcoin as, I can see why somebody would think that it's, sent here from God or some sort of Satoshi was some sort of religious figure, because he gave humanity this gift of absolute pure truth. And it's just a technology, and people might think I'm crazy, right? But it's truth. And when you look at how corrupt the world is and everywhere is rotten, and that this is an actual working antidote that we could put into place, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Do you think if we were on a Bitcoin standard, we would have, so we're talking about fixing half the problems, we would fix half of all the problems in the world, or all the financial stuff? Or this is something else I've been struggling with. Like, I think, because you mentioned people are corrupt. So, what's to stop someone with a big stack of Bitcoin from oppressing people with none? From doing, like, I don't know, bad lending practices, or, like payday loans and stuff like that, right? I could see someone doing the same thing with Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, then it comes back down to the individual, because holding this financial power, this financial energy is power. That's what it is. It's power. And so are you going to use your power for good? You're going to use your power for evil, right? Just like any superhero, you can be a villain, you can be a superhero. Yeah. You've got these crazy powers. Which one are you going to use them for? So then it comes back down to the individual at the end of the day.
Yeah. But at least you would not have fiat money. You wouldn't have made up money, right? Unless people did like Bitcoin derivatives or something like that, which I guess the market would have to accept that.
Someone listening might hear that and think, well, isn't Bitcoin made up money? Like, it's just this like internet coin or whatever. And Bitcoin is made up money. Like, Satoshi made it up. It's an engineered money. It's just a better money.
He made up the concept. The stuff that's been mined is backed by energy, right? Yes. There was actual work and power that went into that. Yeah.
I think it's organically becoming monetized because people see it as a better money. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of a natural process. But it imposes a lot of truth and discipline on the world, which I think is ultimately a good thing.
So I'm curious to get your thoughts, because we've been talking about, okay, if everyone is corrupt, the money system's corrupt, there's this new money. We're really talking, and even talking about suffering, right? Like reducing unnecessary suffering in this world and whatever. We're really talking about in this world, like what is going on here now, and then after you die, it's like whatever. But I'm like, on our show, we talk a lot about, or we try to talk a lot about eternal perspective. We try and think about this as well. Like, okay, what happens after we die? And I'm curious to get your thoughts, because you're very intentional about what you do here and now and educating yourself. Like, you don't want to be one of these boiling frog kind of guys, right? Like, just waking up to some reality. But
I just don't want to suffer.
Yeah, I'm curious to
I'm
get
just
your
tired of suffering.
perspective on the
I'm trying to get
realities.
out of pain is really the driver behind my Bitcoin journey.
But in the here and now, like in this world while you're alive here, what is your perspective on like eternity or after you die? Like, I'm just curious to get your thoughts. You don't have to like...
Yeah, I think whether or not God is real, or our human depiction of God, I think it's wise to live your life in the way that he is actually real and watching it.
So that's something Jordan Peterson mentions, right? Like, isn't that...
I'm not sure exactly where I got it from,
Yeah.
but I think it's wise to live that way. Because if you're right, great. But if you're wrong, it doesn't matter, because you would have lived your life in the best possible way. You would have reduced the suffering for yourself and others and helped others, and really felt good about yourself the whole time. Like, I'm a good person. I live in truth. I'm doing good things for other people. Like, I think it's the optimal way to live your life. And if your driver is because you want to get into the pearly gates and pass and live in eternal heaven instead of burning in hell, then I think that is an amazing driver of that. And I think the principles, in Christianity are an amazing blueprint for living your life. And it's how I was raised. And even though I've kind of strayed away from practicing Catholicism, which is what I was raised by, the principles that I was taught have always served me and will continue to serve me. And maybe I drift back to, practicing the actual rituals of it. But to me, there's a big difference between, like, you could have a Christian who goes through all the rituals and goes to church every week and stuff, but doesn't live their life in truth and in a Christian way and doesn't actually follow the principles. To me, what's always been more important is living your life in that principled way. Because going to church can be like virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it's more important to, okay, I have this belief system. I have these ideals. Yeah. I want to keep those ideals and live my life in this way. But I haven't necessarily been practicing the actual acts of what I was raised with.
That's still kind of, like, let's say you are acting out of, whatever you believe as, like, your purpose, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. And you're trying to do good to other people and all this stuff, but you still acknowledge, on the other hand, that you're corrupt, right? Like, and Mark was just saying, like, somebody gets a lot of Bitcoin, that's great, but then they use it for corrupt purposes, or what, like, I think you gave the example of the suicide bomber, right? Like, this he believes he's doing something virtuous, but you would interpret that action as like an act of evil or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So who's right? Yeah. Who's to say I'm right? Like, that's an ego perspective.
I'm just wondering if you think about these things ever.
Now, it seems like objectively I would be right in that situation to think that the guy blowing up innocent people, but in his mind, like, you can't imagine what the heck he's thinking and how evil he thinks that you are. Yeah. So who's to say I'm right? That's very egocentric to say that I'm right. Now, does that mean I'm going to, like, allow that to happen if I hear about some suicide bomber on this day at this time?
So you, like, compare that to money, though. Like, who's to say that Bitcoin is right versus, like, other kinds of money, right?
Nobody. I think it's for the free market to decide. I think it's for every individual to decide, how do you want to hold your wealth? What system do you want to give power to?
Yeah. So ultimately, the truth will come to light. Whatever system you choose, I think so. Like, one will be revealed. And I think it's the same way with both those ideologies, the suicide bomber, the not suicide. I think the truth comes to light. Like, if his way of life is actually true to what is true, or like the absolute truth, the standard that Mark always talks about, that will become evident at some point.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you want to know before
Oops.
to reduce unnecessary suffering.
Exactly. Yeah.
Eternal
Well,
suffering.
you have to think about it. It's hard to think when you're trying to put food on the table.
Yeah, no, that is true, right? If you can eliminate that, then you have a little more space to think about. Because I don't know where eternity is on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's up there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, we didn't think we were going to get into this, but I went from
I was going to talk about apartment fills, but didn't even talk about that.
That's boring. Facebook Marketplace, you put an ad up, you boost the ad, you do the showings, you fill the property.
We'll link to some of your videos on that. You've got lots of videos.
Who cares?
Well, okay, but we should mention it, and we can maybe link to that. That is something that you do as well, right? You'll do apartment fills for folks.
Sure, I place
Is
tenants.
that something you advertise that you do? or-
Never.
Okay.
Yeah. Just word gets out.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna get a lot
In
of phone
what
calls.
areas?
St. Catharines, Niagara region, Hamilton, GTA,
Oh, so like everywhere. Okay.
everywhere. Yeah.
Are you also doing a Bitcoin instructor course? I heard something about this.
Working on implementing that for Rockstar Inner Circle members.
Okay. This is like you get
Education about Bitcoin self-custody and
Yeah.
wallets and cold storage and
Yeah.
how to safely buy and hold Bitcoin. That's something we're going to be
which is like
introducing on
practical
Rockstar.
skills for people who are just getting into Bitcoin. Have never
For sure,
really done
yeah,
it before.
practical and necessary, but a
Yeah.
bit of a learning curve. So if we can shorten that learning curve for people,
Yeah,
that's the goal.
So you've gone into all the theory and the reason why Bitcoin is good. You could talk about that forever, but then you got to teach the practical skills of actually how to use it.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I think that's probably enough suffering for our audience, and we should reduce their suffering. But if you want to contact Anthony, we'll have that in the show notes. If you want him to fill in an apartment for you, or just whatever, talk about young people in the marketplace. It's been awesome having you on, man. I
Appreciate
Thank
it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
So-
coming out to the studio in person too. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's a pretty awesome setup you guys have. So thank you.
Yeah, cool, man. Thank you. Well, thanks for listening, folks, and until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.